Box 3. That should have gone active by now. Oh boy. Oh, that sparrow is scary. Oh god.
I'm in.
Aim 7F, very scary. And a phoenix is gonna get him. Oh, damn. So, you might have heard, but Gaijin are adding the F-14 to War Thunder. God damn, I am late on this one. I remember playing War Thunder back in 2015 to even 2017, little Joey Koala before this channel ever started. And not in our wildest dreams would we expect an F-14 in War Thunder. Even an F-4 Phantom, that was crazy talk, never gonna happen. Has it really been 3 years since the Phantom was added? What the fuck? Yeah, I'm old. I turned 25 the other day, by the way. Thank you for all the birthday messages on my Twitter and Discord. That meant a lot. Anyway, F-14 time. God, that sounds weird to say. I am so excited for this, guys. I woke up the other morning, I checked the War Thunder page, saw the Mirage Premium that's coming for France this update, and thought, oh, that's cool. And then logged off to go grab a coffee. That was the last thing on the dev blog at the time. Now, only when I had a better look at that dev blog though, and saw that the update would be named Danger Zone, did I think to check, and sure enough, Gaijin, you made the best trailer you've ever made. Okay, maybe that wasn't true. Direct Hit was pretty good and kind of showed more of the update off. This one just showed the F-14, which has me a little worried, but we'll get into that later. Basically, I was shitting and crying for the whole day. So look, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, this is going to be bad for the game, we are not ready for this yet, stop letting Gaijin off the hook just every time they add new shinies. I get it, you know, we all demand better balance, a fairer economy, BR decompression, new game modes, better optimization, etc. And then all seem to forget that every time Gaijin appeals to the lowest monkey instincts in our brains with a massively hyped new plane or tank. I agree with you, don't stop getting your opinions and ideas to Gaijin to get the game fixed in areas where it needs work, just because they distracted you with a shiny new top tier aircraft. But that doesn't mean that I don't plan on enjoying this little childish moment of excitement over this. The F-14 TOMCAT, our first 4th generation fighter jet in War Thunder. God damn, I'm so excited. Don't expect much tank content from me in the next few weeks. So basically today what we're going to do is give a quick once over of the aircraft, its history, what it is, for the 2 or 3 of you who might not know already. Then we're going to go over what you guys can expect from it in game. And lastly, I want to have a talk about what this will mean going forward and what its addition does to and for the game itself. Before that, however, I want to chill out and remind you guys that if you're buying any premiums or pre-order packs, make sure you use our link to visit the Gaijin store down below. You'll get a 3% discount off any and all of your purchases and support this channel. And if you've not used it before, you'll get our decal as well. You can use it as many times as you like, there's no code to put in at checkout, just go to the Gaijin store using that link, helps you, helps me, and nabs a couple of bucks from the snail. So thanks to Gaijin for that, thanks to you guys of course, and I won't drone on anymore because I have the need for speed. Come on, there's gonna be quotes, you've got to give me that one. Now if you want to see a full breakdown and history of the F-14, we actually covered that in a bio video over on our other channel, Armorcast, which you may have seen. I'll leave a link below to check out that video, but basically the F-14 is the successor to the US Navy's F-4 Phantoms in every way. Initially, the proposed replacement for the Phantom's role was a variant of General Dynamics F-111, jointly manufactured with Grumman, who had a history of successful naval aircraft. The F-111 was meant to be this highly advanced, long-range multi-role fighter with advanced radar and radar-guided air-to-air missiles, as well as a significant ground attack capability that would equip both the Air Force and Navy, just as the Phantom had done before it. However, the Air Force and Navy rarely get along that well, and while the Air Force would accept the F-111 into service in the role of a tactical bomber, developing the F-15 Eagle to fill the fighter role instead, the Navy rejected their F-111B variant entirely for being too big, too expensive, and not at all maneuverable. The famous AIM-54 Phoenix missile with its active radar seeker was first designed for this aircraft, but in the end, it was one of two aspects kept, the other being variable geometry wings, as Grumman designed a whole new fighter for the US Navy, and in record time. The design proposed was accepted in 1968, and just 2 years later, the prototype made its first flight. Now, the F-14 was still designed for the role of long-range interception, hence the massive long-range AIM-54 Phoenix missiles intended to shoot down bombers. But one thing that was also stressed with this design was maneuverability. For its size, and it is a big aircraft, the F-14 was extremely nimble, allowing it to dogfight very successfully. It also had the highly advanced AUG-9 radar, which the complexity of its operation was one of the factors necessitating the second seat for a RIO or radar intercept officer. The pilot just wouldn't be able to control the aircraft and all the radar functions. The F-14 first entered service during the Vietnam War, flying with the VF-1 Wolfpack and VF-2 Bounty Hunter squadrons over Saigon in September 1974, though it wouldn't see any combat until the Gulf of Sidra in 1981. The initial F-14As used Pratt & Whitney TF-30 turbofan engines, which were, although very highly performing at high speeds and altitudes, quite inferior to the General Electric F-110-400s being used by the F-15 and F-16. The TF-30s were still rated at £20,000 each on full afterburner. This isn't exactly a slouch, but more the issue with the engines was their reliability issues and tendency to experience compressor stalls, resulting in the F-14A's infamous death spiral. The flat fuselage design of the Tomcat accounts for around 40% of the lift generated by the aircraft, resulting in fantastic handling and dogfighting capability, and with a total of 8 weapons hardpoints along with an M61 Vulcan cannon on the left side of the nose. The Tomcat was a beast of an interceptor, a hell of a fighter aircraft, the best in the world for its time, and didn't even make for too shabby a precision bomber when, during the late 90s, F-14s were outfitted with lantern targeting pods and paveway guided bombs. The F-14A would see combat against Libyan Su-22s and MiG-23s during the 80s and the infamous Gulf of Sidra incidents, as well as the Persian Gulf War and Iraq in 2003 to 2006 before it left service with the US Navy. And it also serves with one foreign nation to this day, Iran. Despite being obviously in modern times an adversary of the US and NATO, Iran and the West were on much more friendly terms at the time, and 79 F-14As, along with a stockpile of Phoenix missiles for them, would be bought by the Imperial Iranian Air Force before the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Iranian F-14As have claimed a large number of kills against the Soviet aircraft used by Iraq, MiG-21s and 23s, MiG-25s, Tu-22s, etc., along with Mirage F-1s I believe, including the only kills with the Phoenix missile. The US never had to launch them at any bombers and never managed to down a fighter with one. That wasn't its intended role. The F-14A would be upgraded into the F-14B in 1987, which incorporated the General Electric F-110 GE400 engines shared with the Eagle and Viper, along with new avionics and other improvements, and then again in 1991 to the F-14D. Now, this variant brought a new radar allowing it to fire the AIM-120 AMRAAM missile, though this was only ever tested and never approved for service with the Tomcat. Those aren't the variants we're getting in War Thunder though, not yet at least. So let's talk about the Tomcat in game. Now, the F-14A we'll see in War Thunder this update is actually one of the first batch of 18 Tomcats to leave the factory, featuring the camo scheme of the VF-1 Wolfpacks. Because it's such an early model, you'll notice it's lacking the TCS, which is the camera under the F-14's nose, as well as the infrared search and track or IRST system, which was fitted in that position first, before the TCS replaced it. It also has those retractable wing glove, almost canards. Only the earliest Tomcats had those, and they deploy automatically when you reach the highest wing sweep angles. But in the Danger Zone trailer that Gaijin released a few days ago, thank you to them for allowing me to use it in this video by the way, it was fitted with AIM-9L missiles, which it received in 1977. Now, it does not have these on the dev server, and definitely should not get them in game unless Gaijin plan on pulling some more 4th gen aircraft out that we haven't seen yet to match it, because this is already going to be the most capable fighter at top tier. Better than the MiG-23 MLs, the J-8B, Phantoms, Vigans, doesn't even care. So that kind of explains why in game this is being called F-14A early. That doesn't necessarily mean that a late model F-14A is planned as a premium or something. If we are going to get a premium F-14, I think it will be an Iranian model, which could actually fit Hawk surface-to-air missiles. Iran actually mounted them when they started running low on Phoenixes. With that being said, I don't see why Gaijin feel the need to call this early. Apparently it may have been done specifically to deny this aircraft lantern pods and guided bombs, but I don't see that as necessary because there are plenty of other aircraft and tanks in this game lacking certain weapons they did see in real life that don't get early tagged onto them, or with extra weapons they only carried very late in life that don't have late tagged onto them. The MiG-21 SPSK with R-60 missiles, for example, isn't called MiG-21 SPSK late. The F-5E has Maverick capability and a radar it only got in the 90s. It's not called F-5E late. You know, the Apache Longbow doesn't have AGM-114Ls, the AH-1Z Viper doesn't have anything later than the 114B, nor does it have AIM-9Ms, but neither of them are called early. They don't need to be. Now, the F-14A model we're getting is unique to an early variant. Like I said, it's one of the first batch, judging by the nose. And it has the cockpit to match, an earlier form of the cockpit with the older radar warning receiver as well. But so are the F-11F and J-35D. Actually, they're both late iterations that we have in game of the specific variant. The earlier versions of both had shorter noses. But that doesn't mean that they need to have that specifically referenced in the name of the aircraft on the stat card, and I don't think that's needed here either. This is kind of where block numbers would be a lot better to have in other US aircraft at least. F-4E53 for example, F-14A65 I believe, F-5E3, stuff like that. The G-Lynx would be another example. Surely by this logic it would have to be called G-Lynx late, except that that sounds ridiculous. So does F-14A early in my opinion. There's no need for it to receive that extra distinction, and honestly I hope it's removed. Right now, the F-14A is being equipped with the AIM-9, D, G and H sidewinders, the H being a new model but it's virtually the same as the G, just a slight upgrade in track rate. And honestly, with the other missiles we already have to research, I kind of hope the AIM-9Ds are removed. There's no need for them. And AIM-9Gs would become the stock missiles for the F-14A. It's also got the AIM-7E and AIM-7F Sparrow missiles, the semi-active radar-guided missiles. The E, by the way, it should not be carrying. The earliest Sparrow fitted to the TOMCAT was the AIM-7E4, which was a modification of the E2 just to get it to fit the TOMCAT's mounting points. It would be exactly the same as the E2 in game. Then you've got the big boys, the AIM-54A Phoenix active radar homing missiles. So yes, it's time to start saying Fox 3 in War Thunder. And there is a lot we can talk about with these missiles, but we'll do that in a moment. When it comes to flight performance, nothing in game really touches the F-14A overall. There are a few planes that accelerate faster, climb faster, a couple that hit higher speeds at high altitude. It is the fastest on the deck by quite a bit, and while a couple have a tighter turning radius or a higher turn rate, the F-14 does everything better than any other jet can. The few that are faster than it in acceleration have no chance against it in a turning dogfight, and the few that can hold their own for a turn or two in the one circle or in a scissors will lose instantly in the rate and be left in the dust in a chase. It'll pull 9 Gs at less than 700 kph with flaps down and then accelerate alongside the later MiG-23s and the F-104s. Basically, the F-14A as it stands right now can dogfight any jet it sees and expect to win 9 times out of 10, leaving 10% for pilot shenanigans. Now this is not even yet factoring in BVR or beyond visual range capability, which is where the F-14 really shines, if you even want to say that, because it shines in the merge as well. When it comes to radar, the AUG-9 is without a doubt the best system of any aircraft in game, even the F-4EJ Kai's APG-66 radar from the F-16. You've got a wide variety of different modes that can help you if you want to and are able to use them to their fullest effect, but you really only need to understand one or two. The first is your standard pulse Doppler search, which is your default mode that you'll be used to using playing other top tier jets. The F-14's pulse Doppler has IFF capability, unlike the F-4Js and the other early Doppler radars, and testing it out on the dev server when it was working properly, it was very reliable at long range, against the ground clutter, etc. Now, Gaijin have massively extended the maximum detection range for aircraft, both in you seeing their nameplate and your radar being able to pick them up. At one point, I was even able to lock someone beyond 80 kilometers, which is going to be really good for conducting proper BVR, and is something I've been really wanting to see for years now, so I'm very happy that Gaijin have managed to do that this update. The second radar mode you'll want to learn how to use is your TWS, or Track While Scan. This mode lets you almost soft lock a target while continuing to search and track up to 6 targets simultaneously. However, on the dev server it was buggy and didn't have all the functionality it should have when the update goes live. Now what TWS is very useful for, at least IRL, and you can see this in DCS for example, is tracking a target and even launching and guiding a missile like a Phoenix most of the way in without ever setting off the enemy's radar warning receiver. They won't even know that they've been locked until the missile goes active, which is something I'll explain in a moment for anyone unfamiliar with some of these terms. By the way, if you want to come and ask or clarify some of these things, either hop onto our Discord, there's plenty of people there who can explain it to you even if I can't, or jump in one of our live streams, which we'll be doing one tomorrow I think by the time you're seeing this. It should be fun, bit of a belated birthday stream. After that we'll be doing one every Wednesday, so make sure to hop in then. So, we've gone over the flight performance, we've gone over the radar, and we've gone over some of the standard missiles you'll be used to seeing. But what about the wildcard, the AIM-54 Phoenix? This is an active radar homing or Fox 3 type missile. Now I'm going to assume that most of you are familiar with what that means. For those of you who aren't, I will do a sort of in-depth guide to the Phoenix when it releases and how to use it, how best to use it. But if you're not at least familiar with the concept of an active radar homing missile and roughly know what to expect from it in game, then you probably won't want to be using this anyway, as it's going to be quite a specialised weapon. The AIM-54 was primarily designed to take down large bombers at extremely long ranges, well over 150 kilometers at launch, which is about 3 times the range of a Sparrow, which it would achieve by lofting to around 80,000 feet or 24 kilometers altitude to get into thinner air, where it could accelerate to almost Mach 5. What you've got to understand about the Phoenix though is that it's not active radar homing all the time. It's not a fire and forget missile the way a Sidewinder or R-24T is. While active radar homing missiles have their own onboard radars to independently track their targets, those radars are obviously much smaller than the ones in your aircraft, and bigger generally equals better. So they need a helping hand to guide them until their own radar can take over and find the target. Basically, they're guided just like a Sparrow until they get within about 13 to 18 kilometers of the target, depends on the size of the target and their radar signature, at which point they go active, where their own radar takes over. It's a little more complicated than that, I am oversimplifying it, but that's the basic gist of it. Once the Phoenix missile goes active at around 13 kilometers, that's about the range you'll get against a fighter-sized target, and the range it was going active in game. You can break radar lock and turn away, and it will continue to guide itself towards the target. Now if you're tracking and launching in your radar's TWS mode, which you should be, this is the first an enemy player will know that anything's coming for them, when they get a lock tone from your missile's radar. Now having the ability to turn away from the enemy at around 13 kilometers means you can stay safe from that enemy's own radar guided Sparrow or Skyflash missiles, basically negating any Phantom's ability to take on a Tomcat. If they stay nose on in order to guide their Sparrows, they get hit in the face with a 1,000-pound missile coming at them at Mach 3+. While if they pull to the side to avoid and evade, the Tomcat is just going to press them, launch another Phoenix or a Sparrow of its own, and given its turning capability and the capability of its radar, the Tomcat is always going to re-engage first. Now, dodging a Phoenix is not overly difficult. These are big missiles that don't maneuver very well and were never truly designed to hit fighters. It has a very long burn time, over 30 seconds, but once that burn is done, it loses a lot of speed and maneuverability very quickly. If you're low down near the deck, which is where most players tend to fly, the Phoenix isn't too scary, and notching its radar by flying perpendicularly to it, along with dropping some chaff, is a pretty reliable way to get rid of it. On the dev server, the Phoenix wasn't nearly performing the way it should, but right now, neither is the AIM-9L or the Magic II. Even the R-24s are missing burn time, which means range and maneuverability. So whether or not the AIM-54 will get an improvement come live release is yet to be seen. We might be waiting a while on that. What I'm seeing being the best factor of the Phoenix is the ability to keep enemies at range and keep them busy. I am very excited for the introduction of the Phoenix, but not because I expect to get a lot of kills with them. What I expect is that proper use of the Phoenix missile will make it much easier to get consistent kills with the Sparrows, while keeping me safe from anything that isn't another TOMCAT, because mixed battles are definitely going to happen. Now all of this is stuff that we can talk about in more depth later on, when we can do some proper jousting fights with these new BVR capabilities in videos. You know, the longer range radar locks, more capable missiles, Fox 3 missiles, etc. But basically, if you're a fan of doing BVR stuff already, and like me you love the Viggen for its ability to do both BVR and some close-in dogfighting, well, the Phoenix missile and the TOMCAT itself should really excite you. Even if you weren't already excited by the fact that, you know, it's a TOMCAT. So, what will the game be like with the F-14 in it, and where do we go moving forward? Because it's been made pretty clear to us that there's no other 4th gen fighters we can expect to arrive this update. And we really don't need them yet, but I think we all know they're coming. Now the F-4EJ Kai is going to receive AIM-7Fs this patch, which should help it to stay relevant against the F-14. Now ideally I'd say give it AIM-9Ls as well, and then it'd actually really give it a run for its money. The MiG-23MLs can easily be given R-60Ms as well, though this doesn't seem to be the case yet. The MiG-23M and MF have them, but to keep the ML variants from being overpowered, they've been denied up until this point. I think it's time they got them. The Phantom FGR-2 could also receive AIM-9Ls, and the F-4EJ Kai and JA-37 Viggen will hopefully get TWS modes for their radars. Now, you can't guide a Sparrow with TWS, unfortunately. They need a full lock and single target track mode, but it should still be a handy tool for those planes. So those are some things I think should happen this update, just to not have one aircraft being so ridiculously overpowered. Move the MLA and MLD, FGR, EJ Kai, and the F-14A all up to BR 11.7, and have them all at least come a little closer to each other without gutter stomping aircraft like the poor Hunter F6. It's still not likely to be balanced though. The F-14 just has too much going for it, unlike what the devs seem to think, while the FGR loses out to the EJ Kai, having a worse radar and missiles. Now on top of that, the F-4E could also receive AIM-7Fs itself and go up to 11.3 to help bridge the gap. The Viggen also going up there where I think it should be already, along with the MiG-27K. The Russian MiG-21 Best can get its R-60Ms, the German Tech Tree F-4F can get AIM-9Ls, the base F-4EJ can get AIM-7E2s or even Fs, lose the AIM-7Ds which it never carried, and the F-5E can get the all-aspect AIM-9P5 missiles. They're basically just R-60Ms but American and based on the AIM-9J. Now they would all go to 11.3, creating a nice bit of battle rating decompression and bridging the gap nicely to 11.7, without actually adding a single new aircraft or missile except the P5. As for more direct counters though, there's one perfect option, the Panavia Tornado F3, which could come to both Britain and Italy, though unfortunately not Germany, who only use the ground attack version. It could still come, just don't expect that version to compete in the air-to-air role. The Tornado F3 would carry 4 AIM-9Ls and 4 Skyflash missiles, the same as the FGR-2, but having a better radar and overall performance, somewhere between the Phantom and the TOMCAT in both regards. This, however, is the only perfect counter to the F-14A, and even then the TOMCAT still has its advantages. The earliest MiG-29s that could be given to Germany and Russia would serve as more counters to the F-14B or F-16A, and would just be too much against the F-14A. The MiG-29 and F-16 have thrust-to-weight ratios greater than 1:1, meaning they could accelerate and climb ridiculously quickly, and basically dance all over the F-14A in a dogfight. The Chinese J-10A or JF-17 are also in this category, as is the Mirage 2000. Basically, the F-14A sits directly between the last of the 3rd generation fighters and the rest of its 4th generation siblings in capability, and that makes balancing it quite difficult. So for example, if all those changes I mentioned were to come to the game, the FGR2 and F-4AJ Kai don't match. If anything, the Kai would more likely sit at 12.0 with the Tornado, and for China, an upgraded J8 variant with PL8 missiles and a better radar is also a good fit. But then does the F-14A sit at 12.3 all by itself, before the F-14B, Viper and Fulcrum come in at 12.7? That doesn't seem right. Now personally, I think that if these changes to aircraft missiles were to come in, the F-14A sitting alongside the EJ Kai and Tornado F3s at 12.0 will have relative parity between those jets, with the F-14A ending up only slightly superior. It doesn't bode well, I admit, for the 11.0s, especially those that'll move to 11.3, but it at least keeps things like the F-14 away from the MiG-21MF and F-104s, so yes, it's still power creep, but your 10.3s and 10.7s remain playable. In the end, the main thing I want to say is that I'm very excited to play the F-14, as should you be if you're into this aircraft, which, let's face it, most of you are. What I'm not excited for, however, is having to fight it with any of the aircraft we currently have. And in my F-14, I won't really feel too threatened by them either. They can all sod off, basically. If my suspicions are correct, this aircraft will open the door for a whole bunch of others in the near future, with Gaijin seeing the F-14 overperforming, because it probably will, and quickly adding the MiG-29 to counter it, which will be slightly too much, before then balancing that with the F-14B and F-16A. That's kind of what they did after the MiG-21MF and SMT had their patch dominating the game completely, back when the T2 had been the best aircraft before then. The F-4E was added, and it was a little too far in the opposite direction, especially when it received Sparrows, but then things calmed down when the MiG-21 BIS was added, and eventually they both went up in BR. And a ton of other Gen 3s all burst through the door that had just been opened. That's basically what I see happening for the remainder of this year. I don't think we'll have the F-14A as the top aircraft for very long. But as always, this is just my thoughts and suggestions, and I'd love to hear yours down below, because that's all for today's video. I really hope you've enjoyed and that you are very excited for this update. I'm definitely looking forward to it, especially with better radar functionality, something I've been talking about in videos for well over a year now. Again, remember to use our link below if you're grabbing any premiums or pre-orders. Hopefully you got to test them out on the dev server first to make sure they are the right fit for you. Always remember to do that. Anyway, thanks lads for watching, and make sure you come and pop in our live stream tomorrow. And now I'm going to go out and watch the new Top Gun. The BMP can be considered the very first of its kind of infantry fighting vehicles, and is still in widespread service to this day. The recognisable machine has spawned a wide variety of variations, and served with an impressive 65 nations since its debut in 1966.